let's talk about The Big Short and then get a little bigger picture. For those who were living under a rock for the last 15 years, what is The Big Short about?
Absolutely. So this is actually, I got to explain why we're here. The audiobooks of my books have started to come back to me, and the rights have started to come back to me. And in the beginning, like Liar's Poker, I mean, it was when they did an audiobook, it was like 18 cassette tapes, and it was basically really was for blind people. That's who would listen to audiobooks, blind people.
Yeah.
And this market has just gone crazy. Like I am finding that, a third of the people who read one of my books actually listens to it.
Yeah.
So the rights come back, and we were just every 18 months we're gonna reproduce them, and I'll read them myself. But the book itself was it was a story of the financial crisis, and it was for me. It was a book, then there was a movie. The book came out 15 years ago. The movie came out 10 years ago. For me, it was just like a wonderful experience. My first book had been about Wall Street, Liar's Poker, my experience on Wall Street. And it so pissed off the people on Wall Street at the time that I just basically assumed, I got into Wall Street kind of accidentally. I thought of myself as a writer rather than a business journalist or anything like that, that I would never write about Wall Street again, because I would never be welcome on Wall Street again. That really felt that way.
Yeah.
And when 2007 came around, and the biggest banks in the world were announcing losses of tens of billions of dollars, I got interested again, but I thought, I don't really have a place. It's too bad they won't talk to me, kind of thing. And because what had happened, the thing that first attracted my attention was the world had basically organized itself around a bet. And the bet was on the U.S. housing market, on the subprime mortgage market.
I remember that. I remember there were people in my life who were getting homes. And I was like, Lisa, how'd you get a house? And I'll never forget, 3 years later, Lisa didn't have a house.
Yeah, there you go.
Describe what that mortgage bubble was and what these investors were betting on, because they were basically betting on...
It's a really good question.
Lower income folks not being able to afford the houses they got mortgages for, right?
They were betting on, essentially they were disguising the risk of the loans they were making to Lisa. And there were a couple of reasons why they were doing that. Because in an ordinary market, why would you lend money that you were never going to get repaid, right?
I wouldn't give Lisa money. Sorry. Bless Lisa. She's not here tonight.
But that's a really important point. You wouldn't give Lisa money, but a mortgage broker would, because he didn't hold the loan. He would sell it on to someone else.
And then they get sold again.
And sold again.
And bundle them and resell them and all this stuff.
And the effect of all this complexity was to disguise the risk. That was the point of the complexity. So what happens is the risk, and this is happening now. This happens, but the financial markets are always looking to disguise risk. So they disguised a lot of this kind of risk. And it ended up, it's complicated how the big Wall Street firms got on the wrong side of this bet, but they were betting Lisa was going to pay off her mortgage. And the bet was, if you'd ask them, they'd say, well, even if Lisa ends up not being able to afford her house, the house will go up in value. We could sell the house.
But no, because it was in suburban South Texas where there's a million of these, McMansions.
Right.
I think Lisa paid that mortgage for 6 months.
Yeah. That's right. And so the thing that surprised me was, the Wall Street I had left, I had worked for the people who made the bets that the bank made for itself. And if you were on the other side of one of those bets, you were in trouble. You were the customer. You didn't want to be the customer. You did not. They were the smartest players at the poker table. And something had happened between the time I left and the time this happened that, oh my God, the biggest banks in the world have become the dumb money. How did that happen? That was the question.
Yes.
So I just thought, give it a shot. See if anybody will talk to me.
And they did?
Well, this is the thing that amazed me. It just amazed me. I started finding, I got names of people who had made the bets in the firm. There was a dude inside of Morgan Stanley who on a single bet lost $10 billion.
And he talked to you about it?
All the people around him. He did talk to me about it. But the first people I called were right around him. The people who worked with him in his unit.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'll have a beer with you, is what they'd say. And we'd go and have a beer. And I swear a version of this conversation happened half a dozen times, where we go out on background.
Yeah.
You can know this, but you don't know, we never spoke, kind of thing. And they would explain what happened. And at some point in the conversation, they'd always say a couple of things. One was, I didn't really do anything dumb. Everybody did the same thing. Like, you can't, so we don't, it was like, it was this,
Wasn't me.
Wasn't me. But the second thing they always said was, the reason we're having this beer is I read Liar's Poker and it made me want to be a trader. And at some point I thought, Jesus Christ, I created this crisis.
Wait, stop right there. I want to ask you some more about that. You think that some of what you were writing about gave some confidence to people to do the bad stuff.
It wasn't the dumb stuff. No, it attracted. I wrote this book, and if you'd asked me why I wrote Liar's Poker, I thought it was a fun story, great story. But if you'd asked me, was there any social purpose to it? It wasn't to attack Wall Street, but it bothered me a lot then. It still bothers me that kids from the best schools were going into it rather than answer the question, what should I do with my life? It was like, you're coming out of Harvard and you don't know what you want to do, and Goldman Sachs will offer you the most money. And if you go to Goldman Sachs, you have an answer to the question, where are you, that impresses other people.
Oh, yeah, I remember this. So I was in graduate school when the crisis hit. I was at the Kennedy School at Harvard, and I'll never forget my intro econ class. The crisis was hitting in that moment, and my professor didn't know what to tell us. And my thinking was like, well, all of us who have just begun this 2-year program, many of whom wanted to become consultants or work in finance, they're not going to be doing that. Lo and behold, they did it.
They still did it.
Even after the crisis, they did it. And so, like, for me, it's like my biggest question now, 15 years after that crisis, in your book, has anything changed enough that would keep people from doing this to our economy again?
No.
Great chat, you guys. Have a good night.
But let me elaborate a bit.
Okay, I want you to, because I'm scared here.
But I feel like I didn't finish. I didn't finish
that.
Finish the thought. Because you were asking me, like, these people who were. So when I wrote Liar's Poker, I thought I wanted to show the college junior what this was, so that if they had some inkling of a passion, of a thought of what they might do with their lives that wasn't this, they would say, I see what this is. They make some money, but it's kind of silly.
Let me go teach America
or whatever. I had a roommate who was made to be an oceanographer. He spent his summers in Woods Hole. He was passionate about oceanography, and like then the finance people came through, and he never looked back. Got him, and I just didn't want that to happen.
Yeah.
But what happened instead was the book came out, and I swear 6 months after it came out, I had 1,000 letters, and they all sounded the same. It was like, Dear Mr. Lewis, I'm a junior at Ohio State University, and before I read this book, I didn't really know what I was going to want to do, but now I really want to go to Wall Street.
Wow.
And I see, and this is, I've gotten all your advice out of this. Are there any other tips you can offer me about how to get ahead? And this is partly our culture. Like, reads every book as a how-to book, but it was...
And not a cautionary tale.
And not just a romping, and nothing else, a rollicking tale. So anyway, these people who read that person ends up being a trader at Morgan Stanley, and the reason I'm in the business is he read the book. This has happened over and over.
Yeah.
All right, now back to your question about
Going to happen again.
Going to happen again. Well, look, it always happens again. It is.
Don't tell me that.
Well, but the question is, it's almost like how it happens is the question, not well. There's
So
always
what's the
another
new
thing.
bubble?
Well, and you could look around. I could give you a few that are.
I have some guesses.
You have guesses. So do I.
Okay.
But none of us know. And I don't know.
Crypto, AI.
There you go.
Feeling bubblish to me.
You're feeling bubblish.
It's feeling bubblish.
But the thing that's changed, the thing that makes me more, so what likely won't happen, it won't happen the same way. Okay. So it won't happen that the big banks, that JP Morgan and Bank of America, and do really, really stupid things all by themselves without help from others that torpedo the financial system. More likely that, I don't know, that these firms called private, they call themselves private equity firms, but they're, there's trillions of dollars of bank loans sitting in places like Apollo and Ares and Blackstone. I don't know what's going on there. The AI bubble could burst. Who knows what it is? What I'm surprised hasn't happened is that it really has surprised me. There was a brief run on regional banks a couple of years ago, right? You remember Silverado, Silicon Valley Bank. And everybody woke up and realized...
The bank that I got my home mortgage through folded once I signed my mortgage.
Well, that's okay, because you owe them money. Right, but it's when they owe... But anyway, we live in a world now where there are a half dozen banks that are too big to fail. that are basically federally backed. Like J.P. Morgan's not going
Yes.
to be allowed to fail. If you
Yes.
have money in J.P. Morgan, you're never going to lose it. The government will bail you out. But it's not going to bail you out if you're in like the Whitney Bank in New Orleans, Louisiana. And I'm surprised, though there is deposit insurance of up to $250,000, that anybody keeps any more than that in those banks.
Really?
And I thought there was going to be a run then. And they thought, I think the policymakers did. So that feels like a place
Okay.
that bad things could happen. I don't know how, but never mind how. The thing that scares me is that, okay, something will happen eventually. I don't know what it is. Nobody knows what
You're
it is.
supposed to know what it is. Tell me
No,
what it
no,
is.
no, 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 no. Anybody, especially the when of it. Like, who knows when? But when it happens, the reason we were able to skate through, as bad as it was in 2008, 2009, 2010, it was not nearly as bad as it would have been if the Federal Reserve did not come in and do what it did.
Well, and I remember that moment when Obama and his White House
Made
did
these
whatever it took and put a lot of money
Right.
into these banks to save it. But here's what feels different now, should a bubble happen.
Yep.
Donald Trump is such a different president from any Republican or Democrat who has come before him. And you've even said in an interview with The Ringer that President Trump might have an incentive, a personal financial incentive, to create or be part of a financial crisis that debases the dollar.
Did I say that?
To The Ringer.
So I
Derek
said,
Thompson.
I said a version of that. And
Okay.
this is what's different, right?
Yes.
The combination of, well, in 2008, as much as people might have had some mistrust of the federal government in a general way, nobody mistrusted the full faith and credit of the United States.
And Republicans and Democrats said, we got to fix this.
We got to fix this. And the Federal Reserve was an pretty independent.
Not too
institution.
independent these days.
That's right. That's what's changed. That and the finances of the United States are much worse. And you've got a president who's got odd incentives.
What are the incentives? Break
His
them down.
family is now, the Trump family business is now crypto. I mean, that is the biggest source
Just a
of
few months ago, they were selling Bibles, so now it's
Yeah, no, but it has a lot of noise, but
Yeah.
there's some hotels and the golf courses, but this crypto stuff is huge for them. And how do you increase the value of a crypto portfolio?
Debase the dollar.
There you go. And so I just can't think, if you ask me the single lesson like I learned while writing The Big Short that actually affected my life, it was how terrifyingly powerful incentives are. If you don't pay attention to your incentives, you're not paying attention to what's guiding you. You may think you're above your narrow incentives, but it's amazing. And you saw this in these banks, that these traders were actually incentivized to make the stupid loans. We have a president who is incentivized in a narrow financial way to debase the dollar.
Yeah.
And there's never been that before.
It's wild.
It is wild.
Yeah. Since that crisis and your coverage of it, have the incentives of the American people changed a lot?
Oh.
I feel a difference in what the people around me want out of their economic lives.
Explain.
I think there was a certain kind of optimism that undergird the housing bubble. This is the American dream.
Yep.
You need this, go get it. And I feel that a lot of folks now are a lot more disillusioned
Cynical about it.
obtaining any kind of dream.
Right.
It feels a little more just like, try to make it. Are the American people in a particularly different place emotionally, financially?
I mean,
in the way
don't
they
you think
about
so?
this stuff?
Well, look what we've got. We're living
I think we're worn down.
If you think about, we did alongside the book, we did a 7-episode podcast series on kind of in and around the financial crisis, consequences of the financial crisis, and it doesn't exactly start there, but a disillusion with elites and institutions, a mistrust in elites and institutions.
That feels big.
It gets
right now.
hypercharged there, right? Both Elizabeth Warren and Steve Bannon's political careers really get launched out of it in a big way. The anger. I mean, I feel like I've been living in a country where the most important emotion is anger for a while now. And Trump's real genius is one of his gifts is taking advantage, using that anger, making people feel like he shares that anger in some way, finding objects of grievance that they anger to, at which the anger can be pointed, directed. So the country is different. It's different in part because of that event, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I mean, this was always the case in America, but it's become even more stark in the way we can see it, because we see it in our phones every day as we scroll and see the super rich being super rich. It feels as if income inequality has increased, and also
It has
we see it more.
Yeah.
I see it.
Yeah.
I log onto my phone.
Yep.
And I just see rich people living a separate and different life than anyone else around me. And it's like, I don't know where all that energy, anger, and emotion goes, but I know that it is informing most of the public and how they make decisions or think about the economy and think about how they want this country to work.
So this is a little bit of a digression, but there are two social science experiments that I can't get out of my head that feel like they explain the world we're in.
Okay.
And one of them, you probably know these experiments, but there was a social psychologist. I think his name was Franz de Waal. He's died since, but he worked with monkeys. Some kind of monkeys. I can't remember the kind of monkeys. But he had monkeys in cages. And he would give the monkey a task and reward it with a little slice of cucumber. And the monkeys could see each other from cage to cage. So they could see what the monkey next to it was doing and was getting the cucumber. And they're all happy, the monkeys. And then he comes in and he gives one of the monkeys a banana instead of a cucumber. And a banana is a far superior treat to a cucumber.
I believe that.
And when the one monkey gets a banana and then he gives cucumbers to the other monkeys,
They're pissed.
They go batshit.
I would too.
If you can watch the videos, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And I feel like something like that is going on in our population.
Oh, yeah.
Like monkeys in cages going crazy because they're seeing people with bananas.
When I see a celebrity on a private jet,
yeah, it's just
it doesn't.
So that's one.
It's like ugh.
That's one of the social science experiments. The other is. This is a friend of mine, Dacher Keltner, who's a psychologist at Cal. In his early days, he did this experiment where he brought like undergraduates into his lab and told them that they were there to argue about, discuss big problems on campus. And he'd divide them just into groups of 3 and arbitrarily would pick one of the 3 to be the leader of the group. It was just randomly assigned. You're the leader.
Yeah.
And they'd put them in a room and said, we're going to film you talking about how to like solve academic cheating on campus or sexual assault on campus, some problem that was that was relevant. And in the middle of the 2 or 3 hour session, they would bring in a plate of cookies, and there were 3 people, and they'd bring in 4 warm chocolate chip cookies. And everybody got a cookie. And then there was this 4th cookie that was left over. Yeah. And nobody, it was like a moment, and then the leader just would take it. And eat it with like gusto, with like masticating and drooling. And it was like, it was an illustration of the effect of privilege. That you arbitrarily assign a kind of privilege to someone, and there is an arbitrariness to our economy. There's a reason to it too, and people behave very badly when they're put in. Inequality creates a lot of bad behavior, and people grab the cookie. And I feel like we're living in a world where there are a lot of people who basically, they drew a long straw, and they're grabbing for the 4th cookie, and both those things I feel like they're in the air. And so we don't have to just talk about The Big Short because it has driven me. I think I don't know quite how I drifted into this, but a couple of the last books and the book I'm working on now have been set in the civil service, and with a kind of an older ethic of people who are doing something that's mission driven, not money driven, for the common good, not for private gain, who have a real belief in the broader mission, the broader purpose of why we're all here. And I think I'm so drawn to them because it's so refreshing in this environment. Yeah. You don't find it like on Wall Street.
Exactly. So then, talking about all of this, the potential for a new bubble, rising inequality, dissatisfaction, a perverse incentive structure for our very own president. If you're in charge,
What kind of charge am I in?
Whatever
Am
you
I
want to be in
president?
charge
Am I
of.
president?
Whatever you want to be in
Okay.
charge of, but you get to do one big thing, and all of America has to do it. What is your one big thing that would help fix a bunch of these issues that we've just been discussing? Your first big thing. You get one big thing. You could be president. You could be Fed chair. You could be a pop star.
Oh, you're giving me I get to pick my job is what you're saying.
You get to pick the job and the first thing you do in the job to help address some of this tinderbox of issues that we've been speaking about.
Chief Justice of the Supreme Court.
And what would you
do? I think that's where I go. But now I'm really in charge of the Supreme Court.
You're in charge. You are John Roberts.
I don't know if I can completely flip it because I've got a 6-3 problem here.
You're going to add some seats.
I'm going to add some seats.
You're going to add some seats.
There we go. So there we go.
With your majority, what's the first thing you would do? Would you regulate something differently? Would you change a big policy? Would you give a big
I get to do anything without knowing the law. I guess you get to just do it.
Just do it.
I'd overturn Citizens United and get money out of politics. We've moved to this. It's in the air we breathe now. We don't even think about it. Yeah. But it's not one man, one vote anymore. One person, one vote. It's like you have $400 billion, you get 400 billion times more influence than the person with no money, with $1. So it's that has poisoned everything. And so I think that's probably where I go. I don't even think Americans getting rid of Donald. The second thing would be like I get to be. I don't know, what do I get to be? President, and I get knock him out of the office.
Sure,
that would be helpful. But I think of him as much symptom as cause.
Say more about that.
Well, I just think he's an expression. Yes, I think he's doing enormous damage to the country, but we put him in there, and so
we's a big word.
We's a big word. Yeah, it is. It is a big word.
Go ahead. Though.
There's. It's a big. You just put me on a spot because I hadn't thought about this. I do think I think that if you got money, if you really could get the money out of politics, you wouldn't have Donald Trump there. I don't know what you'd have, but you have something different.
Yeah. Do you think that we are in any way, given the way our politics right now, able to achieve that? Because no one in office right now has any incentive to overturn money in politics.
Right. What do you think?
No.
Okay. So that's called boomer asking. You asked me a question you really wanted me to ask you. You had an answer. I don't know.
I don't think this is not my. You're supposed to be talking, but
I'm interested.
I think I used to cover politics. I covered the first election that Trump won in 2016.
Right.
And ever since Trump won that first election, I have seen Democrats, whenever they have a moment of power or a moment of capture of the chambers of Congress or the White House, they don't do all the things they can do.
Right. Yep.
They don't do it. They don't codify Roe. They don't add Supreme Court justices. They don't enshrine in the Constitution rights.
They don't go low enough.
That's not low.
No.
That's good. And I don't know what changes that. And I think part of the reason they don't do that is because the money is pulling their strings.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
It's pulling the strings on both sides.
That's true.
So not a question. I'm just venting now.
I want you to feel better at the end of this evening.
We got some work to do.
Not worse. But I just have a couple of responses to that.
Yeah.
One is you just did is not what I do.
Yes.
I'm really not that interested in my opinions.
I'm
interested in. I'm interested in finding narrative in the world, and I'm interested in. I want to know what I think before I write something.
Yeah.
But I do find here's a segue to this, The Big Short. The difference between the book and the movie.
Yes.
The movie's much angrier than the book.
Huh.
And the movie's much angrier than the book because 5 years had passed, and Adam McKay, we had some fullness of time thing, and we saw that there was not going to be any Old Testament justice and all the rest. But Adam McKay has a capacity for anger
that's kind of his MO. Creatively,
this is the man who made Anchorman.
Yeah.
Anchorman, Talladega Nights, and the Step Brothers were his body of work when he comes into the Big Short. He calls it his mediocre white man trilogy.
But then we end up with him making Veep, right?
But then he pivots.
Vice,
this thing is a pivot point for him. So he has this capacity for anger, And if you look at the movie, the book ends in a, I mean, I hate the word, but in a more literary way. It ends with the one group, one of the main cluster of characters sitting on the steps of St. Patrick Cathedral, looking at the people walking by as Lehman Brothers has just failed, and thinking that none of these people have no idea what's about to hit them. We know, we think our society might collapse, they're thinking. And them just watching. And it's a kind of movie moment. He had no interest in that for the ending of his movie. He wanted an editorial, right? He wanted to say why this was bad.
Yeah.
And I disagree with him on this. I understand it. I understand it's important to feel those things, and that's why you do the movie in the first place. But I think that I like creating things where I've left enough of a hole for a reader to walk in that two people coming from very different places, politically, wherever, can both enjoy it, but also come to really different conclusions about it. Like I leave it to the audience to figure out what it means. And so this kind of like coming in with I could write the editorial.
Yeah.
I've written editorials.
Yeah.
I've forgotten them all. They've left me unsatisfied. For whatever reason, the thing that leaves me satisfied is creating a story where there's room for the reader of lots of 10 different people with 10 different predispositions will find 10 different things in here. And McKay wanted to make sure that it's kind of funny. I interviewed him for the podcast, and he said that one of the reasons there is this editorial streak in the movie is that Will Ferrell and I got so sick of people missing the serious point in our movies. Now, to which one might naturally ask, what's the serious point?
Movie?
What's the serious point of Anchorman? So Anchorman's really about the decline of media in America to them. And I said, really?
Most people
That's what it was about.
Yeah.
No, most people didn't get that.
Yeah.
So he went in a completely different direction here.
Yeah.
So you're asking, when you ask me the kind of question, what's the future? Any kind of that version of that question, I don't know what to do with it.
Okay.
I don't. I'm hesitant. I think the people who do predict the future tend to be people you don't want to listen to.
Yeah, I get that.
That just like, for example, when the next financial crisis will happen, or what it is. I could tell you that we don't know, that no one knows, that whatever happens, there will be some people who had predicted it, but they won't be able to predict the next one. There's no gift in predicting financial crises that anybody has. And so the kind of person who is insisting on telling you when and how it's going to happen is the kind of person you should not listen to.
Yeah.
Because they're being certain about an inherently unknowable thing. Yeah. This is a sign of stupidity.
Or manipulation. They're trying to manipulate you. Yeah.
Or what?
Or they're trying to manipulate you.
Or they're trying to manipulate you. That's true. That's right.
Yeah.
You're right.
So let's go back to The Big Short. 15 years later, looking back, would you have reported any part of it differently? Knowing what you know now?
What would I, if I could have had the access, and I later had the access to him, Obama. I later spent quite a bit of time with him, but this was after I'd written the book.
Yeah.
So I reread the book because I had to do that. And I did not. When I reread Liar's Poker, I went, oof.
Do you like to reread your stuff?
Oof, no. I never do it, ever.
Okay.
And but I had to do it, and I had to do it for Liar's Poker when we did Liar's Poker 18 months ago. And when I reread Liar's Poker, it was like, oh no, like things happen.
Really?
Oh, this should have moved there. It was
Really?
it was amateur hour. I was 27 years old. I'd never written anything. There was a charm to the amateurism, but the charm wore off on me after about 40 pages. And it was like, Michael, I was saved by the quality of the material. The material was so good that even though I screwed it up in places, and the real tell was, I could see in that book where I thought I was being funny. Oh my God!
You don't think you were funny? Give me an example.
I don't even want to. But there were places that were really funny that I did not realize were funny when I was writing them. So somehow enough humor got across, but it wasn't because I was, knowing what was funny. It was horrible. It was like a bad date. That reading that book is like, this person has no self-awareness. And when I got to The Big Short, I thought, I've learned some things. I wouldn't. The narrative kind of loved. The
worked.
material
It was
was
good.
great. The
Yeah.
material was great. It was like being dealt a beautiful bridge hand, and all I had to do was play it in a semi-intelligent way. I had a great hand to play, and so I wouldn't have changed the way I wrote it.
Okay.
But there's a thing that's missing, and it was the public policy. What are you going to do with all this anger? What are how are you going to slay?
Posing that question to Obama. you said?
Like I remember him telling me, like we decided there was going to be no Old Testament justice, and that we were very clear the right thing to do was prevent a depression, and it was hard it's hard to remember this, but it was not an obvious thing. How are you going to put anybody in jail? Like what laws they actually broke? It gets to be a very complicated question.
Because it's like the corporations are
There's all this fine print that said, okay, we can do this.
Yeah.
And there had been this particular case. This was funny, that when Bear Stearns went down, that was the first one that went down, right? There was a fund on the side of Bear Stearns that was doing complicated things with subprime mortgages. And the Department of Justice brought a case, tried to prosecute the guys who ran the fund. And not only did they get off, did the jury say, no, you're innocent. They were quotes in the New York Times where the reporter found a couple of the jurors asking how they could get a hold of the Bear Stearns funds managers because they wanted them to run their money. And so it was like, it was really going to be, it was not obvious that you could actually throw these people in jail. So it was, but there was, I think, a little bit of a tone deafness about just how much anger this was generating. And I don't know, I would love to have watched him grapple with it would have been a lovely ending to the book. If he let me in, sitting with Obama, like this just happened, we did the technically right thing. There's not going to be a depression. We can't put anybody in jail, or it's hard to put people in jail. What's going to happen to the society? That's a piece of it that I would have been fun to get. And I didn't get.
Go find him and ask him. I'd rather him talk about that than make all these Netflix shows and stuff. I keep thinking about Lisa and a lot of folks that were taken advantage of in that last crisis, in that mortgage bubble.
And people who, there were people who were just taking advantage of the situation.
Yeah.
They were innocent people. People are funny about money.
Totally.
But there are people who are quite cynically borrowing money they were never going to repay. They flip houses and all that.
But thinking about Americans who are not in positions of power right now, who aren't working at these big banks or in private equity or in crypto or AI, who are just working, trying to stay afloat, from all of the reporting you've done in your career and all that you know about how the American economy works or doesn't work and who it works for or doesn't work for, if a working class person were to ask you, what advice should I take from your work in terms of how to preserve myself economically in this country right now? How would you advise them? One piece of advice based on what you've reported and learned over the last many, many years. Because I think a lot of folks feel rudderless, adrift, and not stable, even though they're working.
So is it like personal financial advice?
Not personal financial advice, but like how to get through a moment that feels really in flux. When I talk to folks at home in Texas, when I talk to friends of mine who are raising kids and building families, they're all like ducks on the top of the water, and it looks like they're moving very smoothly. But if you could take a camera under the water, they're just...
Yeah. This isn't just working class people. Everybody's minds are spinning right now. This is a weird year.
Yeah. Do you have anything to say to that anxiety?
It's a good question. It's not one I've thought about. So you're going to get me just spouting off the top of my head. So the answer I'm going to give is what I do to make myself feel better.
Which is?
I try to figure out what I can do. And, we all have our different roles in the world. Mm-hmm. I'm really disturbed by where our country is right now. But I'm not that disturbed by our country generally. I think it's got greatness still in it. And it's such a protean place, so changeable. You never know which way it's going to go. You never know what this is going to look like from 50 years from now. It's not a one-way ticket, I don't think. It's going to bounce in some other direction. What can I do to help it bounce? So what makes me feel better is finding stories to tell that I think is going to help it bounce in the right direction.
Okay.
But that's just me, because I can do this. I'm lucky to have a thing to do. It's harder if it's an obvious thing to do. Write a book that 1 million people will read, and a movie might get made, and it might shift the culture in some way. The other thing that I have never been able to get out of my head since I first heard it, I wrote a book called The Undoing Project about Danny Kahneman and Amos Tversky, who they were the people who pioneered the study of human irrationality, like the dumb things we do, the things that are the things people did that led to Moneyball, like led to the possibility of Moneyball, why baseball was so screwed up because of the way people make irrational decisions. Anyway, Tversky and Kahneman were temperamentally opposites. Kahneman was this brooding Eeyore-like pessimist, and Tversky was kind of like up all the time. At one point, he turns to Kahneman, he gets sick of it, like, oh, it's all so awful, oh, the world's getting worse, so on and so forth. And Tversky says, Danny, that pessimism is not just a trait, it's a form of stupidity. He says, when you're pessimistic, you live the bad thing twice. Once when you're worrying about what the bad thing is going to happen, and then the second time when it happens.
Wow.
So this is an argument for just calculated optimism.
I like that.
And I do think you force that feeling right now. I think that it doesn't do anybody any good to ruin every family dinner talking about how awful the world is. And
Say it again.
And if you kind of like make rules, like keep Trump out of the conversation. If Trump upsets you, it's that there's just like you can just do stuff to give yourself some space. But it's very hard to persuade people. People do like to go to this place. I've been to so many dinner parties in the last year that have been ruined by that man.
Well,
yeah,
it's twofold. I found when I was covering hard news and politics, there's a certain class of news consumer and informed citizen who likes to live in the anger and likes to live in the anxiety, and it's actually their entertainment.
That's right. That's right.
That bums me out. I don't like it.
You don't like it. I don't like it either. I mean, it's not my form of entertainment.
Yeah.
I think that every day you can be sure there will be a fresh outrage.
There's an outrage.
Steve Bannon said to me, I think it's the thing. If there's one quote, I don't do quotes really. Like I'm not looking for the quote, but I managed to get one out of him.
Yeah.
Trump won. He says to me over his dining room table, he says, Michael, like the Democrats aren't the opposition. He says the media is the opposition, and the way you deal with the media is you flood the zone with shit. And it's a conscious strategy to constantly, you are being fed this, so we're not asking about the Epstein files. So we will blow boats out of the water off the coast of South.
We will tear down half the White House.
We'll tear down half the White House. There's no doubt in my mind that what is going on there is like constantly bombard them with stuff so that they don't pay attention to the thing over there. Yeah. And so you've got to not constantly respond to it. You've got to back away from it. Or else, another way of putting this, and this is that you've got to make Donald Trump work for you or you work for him. That you've got to kind of figure out how to, my jujitsu move is with the books, with The Fifth Risk, with this Who is Government book we brought out this March, with the book I'm working on now, is he creates excellent opportunities for civics lessons. Like civics lessons used to be boring. They're all of a sudden like page turners. Yeah. And it's like, so that this is valuable. Like make him work for you. Like he's going to electrify who cared about the Department of Agriculture before? Yeah. Now you can like get 1 million people to read about the Department of Agriculture. Let's do that.
Yeah. I remember when he first won, because I did one of those stories. Everyone wanted to do stories about the Hatch Act and the ethics of the Hatch Act. There you go. They're going to violate the Hatch Act. And eventually they were just like, okay, he's going to violate the Hatch Act. It feels like there's space for the civics lessons that he is making us learn by his behavior.
That's right.
But there's also a feeling that like half the stuff that I learned in undergrad as a poli-sci major, it doesn't matter anymore.
Feels that way right
It felt like a lot of the things that we were told were rules were just norms.
Yep, that's true. But there are some laws, and there are laws, and he's just breaking them.
I know.
He doesn't really care whether it's a law or a norm.
Yes.
You do. He doesn't.
I do.
No.
Anywho.
But it is true.
Yeah.
It is true.
Can
we talk about something happy?
Well, I was going to go somewhere.
Can you go to your happy place?
My happy place. What is my happy place?
What is your happy place?
Goofy sweaters.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you about a thing that's not happy, but I'm like really interested in, and I can't make sense of. But I'm like, oh, this is big. This is crazy. Something's happening here. What's going on? And it is. And I asked you this question. Well, go Dodgers always, forever. But it's sports related. I love sports from afar. I don't observe it closely. But one thing I keep wondering about is what in the heck is going on with all this sports gambling?
Oh, yes.
It's not scaring the hell out of me, but I'm just like, that looks fishy. And I've seen the headlines about this new NBA scandal, and there are men that I know, and it's like men who are just spending all day and night gambling on sports.
You do know people.
Yeah.
And it's men.
Yeah.
It's almost all men.
It's always men.
Almost all young men.
Yeah. It seems like that is a newly emerging different kind of bubble.
I think of it as it's like tobacco all over again.
Wow.
It's a predatory industry, and it's different. So FanDuel and DraftKings are at the center of it. They were before. So what the backstory is, there was a federal ban, effectively a ban on states legalizing sports gambling, which is different from banning sports gambling. They could just ban sports gambling. They haven't done that. The Supreme Court in 2018 says this is unconstitutional. And there were these two companies, FanDuel and DraftKings, that up to that point had managed to persuade some states that fantasy lotteries, fantasy sports, fantasy leagues, where there was money at stake, was not gambling. It was a game of skill. And so they established these businesses that were sucking wind. They were not big successful businesses. But what had happened in the process of building that business is they gathered data on millions of Americans who wanted to gamble on sports. They were playing fantasy, and so they had these databases on you, and they're data businesses, and they're able to. So we did. The reason I know anything about this is I did earlier this year a podcast season on this, on the history of it, and on how the market now works, and how the market works is kind of shocking. Those companies are able, within about 4 bets, to know if you know what you're doing. Now, almost nobody does know what they're doing. Like, the odds are against you. But there are some edge players. They're the equivalent of people who would count cards in a casino. People who actually know something about, I don't know, professional golf, and when they place a bet, the expected value of that bet is positive. It takes them about 4 bets to figure out if you're that, and they ban you. You can't get a bet down. My producer, Lydia Jean Cott, who is just terrified of money and gambling and anything, got given an account with, I don't know, $100,000 in it by a professional gambler and allowed to place bets on his behalf. She managed to get herself banned at all the sports books in America. She can no longer, for the rest of her life, gamble now.
She was too good.
Because she was too good. And it wasn't even, oh, she's winning. You could make 4 bets that actually lost. But they were still too good. They identifiable as the bets of a sharp, of someone who knows what they're doing. On the flip side of this is they can equally detect that you don't know what you're doing, and they can especially detect when you have a problem. And they have a thing they call you if you have a real problem, and they can really mine it, and they call you a VIP. And so
wow.
They get you. They're mining addiction is what they're doing. And there are. It's an interesting. It's different from opioids. It's different from tobacco. It's different from alcohol. You don't see it. It's invisible. The casino's on the phone.
You can do it anywhere.
You do it anywhere. You have no idea whether anybody's doing it. You don't have any idea that they've ruined their lives until they commit suicide or whatever. And they're already natural experiments where you can see, like, I can't remember which one has it, which one doesn't. 38 states have legalized gambling, sports gambling. I think Mississippi has and Alabama hasn't. And you can already see changes in bankruptcy rates, lower savings rates in the place that has it, increases in suicides. You can already see this slow moving crisis. And we're not living in a society right now that takes care of its citizens very well. I mean, this goes back, you could trace this, the pandemic. Like the mortality rate in the society was off the charts, especially given our resources. We're sending this is a constant signal that we just don't take care of our citizens. We don't watch out for people. We're wary of protecting people from themselves. And this is a case where people should have been protected from themselves. And it is, that's one side of it. The other side of it, what it's going to do to sports. I mean, you can, if you go, so Charlie Baker, you know who Charlie Baker is? He was governor of Massachusetts. He's now, Republican governor of Massachusetts, now head of the NCAA. He gets the job at running the NCAA, and he does what he did when he became governor of Massachusetts. He goes on a listening tour of American colleges. He wants to see, like, what are the concerns of college athletes. He has some ideas of what they might be. He has no idea what he's about to hear. What he's about to hear is from across the country. Sports gambling is ruining my life.
Wow.
I can't leave my dorm after a game because like the guy next door bet on me to get 5 rebounds in the game, and I didn't. And he's sending me death threats.
Are you serious?
They have file cabinets filled with threats of college athletes.
Wow.
The effect on mental health in this country. And so this is now, see, the NBA thing is, what's so shocking is that you might think that an NBA player who's making $10 million a year doesn't need to be doing this. But the college players, I mean, there's going to be scandal after scandal, and you can make bets. I mean, it's hard to manipulate an outcome of a game, but it's really not hard to manipulate whether you missed your first free throw. And you can put down a lot of money on, are you going to score 6 points, or are you going to miss your first free throw? So they're going to have a hard time detecting it, and it's going to start to challenge the integrity of sports. And that was a really happy note for you.
Well, listen, we're gonna. Okay,
I don't know how we did this.
We're gonna turn it around.
Okay,
we're 3 minutes over time. We're gonna go to audience Q&A, but I'm gonna ask you really quickly before we go to audience Q&A. Really quickly, what's making you happy right now? Something, a book, a movie, some music, a meal, something.
I'm loving my work right now. I'm loving the book. I can't talk really about it. It's set in the civil service, but it is a really exciting literary project.
Is it inspiring you?
Oh my God!
Feel better about America?
Oh yeah. Okay. I love the characters, and so and I'm writing I can't talk about either one of them in detail, but I'm writing a play. I'm writing a play for the Cherry Lane Theater in the West Village in New York, and I've got an actor, and Tommy Kail, who directed Hamilton, is directing it, and that's a whole other that's like I'm feeling like I'm working muscles I've never worked.
I love that.
And that is a joy. So work has got me jazzed right now.
So you're working with the guy who did Hamilton. Does that mean one day we get The Big Short, the musical? That'd make me happy.
It's not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea. All right, with that.
So let me just, that's funny you say this.
Yeah.
But actually, when I was laying out The Big Short, I thought of it as
a musical?
As a chorus. Like I thought these voices all have to sound different. There were these 3 main characters basically, and they were singing together. Is how I thought of it.
Y'all heard it here first. The Big Short, the musical.
So anyway,
it's coming soon.
Anyway, but we need to take some audience questions.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with a couple that came online, and then we'll come to the raise your hands when you're ready. The first one comes from a gentleman named Bill, who says, Michael, one of your times at Live Talks LA, you talked about music and writing, and I feel like you said something along the lines that writing certain books had soundtracks that went to it. You listen to the same songs over and over again to keep you going. Do you still do that?
So there's a question. I was waiting for the question. You just said it had to have a question, right? Okay. Although we welcome political statements if everybody wants to say it. But it's so I do. I can show you right now on my phone. I build a soundtrack for every book. There's overlap. There's songs that go back 7 books. So it gets organically kind of updated. Mainly my 26-year-old daughter sends me stuff, and I can hear it and say, yeah, I can write to this. And the point of the music is not exactly the music, though it does put me in a mood. it shuts out the whole world. And that I find I can't write if there's, I have trouble writing if there's a possibility of interruption. And so I have to create the impossibility of interruption. And that's what it does. But this soundtrack is not profound. It's like, I mean, the theme song from Frozen has been on it for 20 years. It's like things that just shut out the world, and I don't have to listen to it. And some of the music is accidentally good music, but it's just accidental if it's good music. It's stuff, it usually tends to be kind of up, too. Yeah, it's not deep.
One more question from the online part, and then we'll come into the audience. This is a follow-up to what Sam asked about gambling, and he generally asked the question. The second part of it was, how do you feel about like odds of winning being worked into editorial content, like when you're on a website and you're following a sports score?
You mean, how do I feel about like
How about a journalist using and referring to the odds?
Well, you
of
get
winning?
it constantly on the TV, and you get it when you're online. It's the win probabilities are changing with every swing of the bat, kind of thing. There's a question here that's, I think the question is how I feel about the explosion of statistical information in games. On the one hand, it's nice that some of the statistical information is more intelligent than it used to be, like more relevant, but not all of it. And I think it gets in the way of the game. I think it's just gone way too far. It's it's especially since a lot of it doesn't make any sense. It's gobbledygook. So do I really need to know the win probability? No. I mean, I go back and forth. It's kind of, for kids, it's a math lesson. You know, the point, if there's a habit of thought that was sort of underlying the Moneyball movement that had not existed before the Moneyball movement, it was probabilistic thinking. It was an awareness you're living in an uncertain world, and it's hard to predict, and all you can do is slightly nudge the odds in your favor. It isn't, that's a player and that's not a player. It's like maybe. And the maybe stuff I like. I kind of like that. People are, you know, a young person watching a game is introduced to the idea that this is uncertain, and you can have your opinion, but there is a way of getting at measuring the degree of uncertainty.
My question is, where do you get your real news? Like, what
sources of news I
Yeah, where do you get your real news?
So I try to be as honest as possible about this. I don't, when I'm working on a book, I stay almost off everything. And but I get newsletters in the morning. I look at Axios. John Ellis has a thing called News Items that I just love. It's a lot of science, a lot of what's going on in China, a lot of, you know, and I live in California. I live in Northern California. The California Sun is, I think, the best digest. So digest is how it starts. I don't read any physical papers anymore, and I miss it, but I don't miss it enough to go do it. I don't know why, because what I miss is randomly running into stuff that I wouldn't normally seek out. That's what I miss. And then after that, you know, I glance at a lot of stuff online. I glance at the Wall Street Journal, the Financial Times, the New York Times, ProPublica, Real Markets, which is a conservative. It's got a lot of libertarian kind of stuff. If I want to see something rude about me, I go there. You know, they love Moneyball, but they hate the civil service stuff. You know, so I try to look at some right-wing stuff, but it's all glancing. It's all glancing.
Do you do social media at all?
Zero. So that's I use X and Blue Sky to just see if something's trending. Okay. A couple times a day, I'll see what's trending to see what's going on. Yeah. It's always kind of, you know, you never know what's going, you know, so yes, but I don't post anything. I think, you know, one of the things I've noticed is, I mean, one of the things you can't help but notice, it partly sort of explains the degree of polarization in the country, is that we now have all these mechanisms for going out and expressing your opinions. And once you've expressed them, it's amazing how firmly you start to hold them. You know, you can't move off of it. And I watched this with the Sam Bankman-Fried book. Like, it was called Going Infinite. I love the story. Like, as a narrative, it was just a wild story. A person broke the law and did a bad thing, but there was a context for it. And the more you knew, the more you couldn't help but feel a little more sad than angry. And this was true of the people who were closest to it, like people who actually were most damaged by him had a hard time generating the viciousness that was just routine on Twitter. And it was interesting to me that before any of the facts come out, really, to watch the way, and this is true, I'm mentioning this because I think it's true of everything in our now, people lined up with their opinions. There were a million opinions expressed very strongly on Twitter, and could not accept new information that was interesting information. Did not want more nuance. They wanted their harsh, clever, hot take, and they got anchored in it. And so the book was a kind of nuanced story, and the book was one of the best things I'll ever write. And it met with this vicious backlash from people who had an opinion. They knew nothing compared to what I knew. They knew so little. And that they were so firmly entrenched in their views because they'd expressed them already. And so I don't want to get in a position of being that person. I don't want to go express my views so that I get stuck with them. Because what I want to be able to do is acquire information and update and adapt and try to develop a richer view of the world around me so I can express it, and it's fun to read about in a book. And so I feel like it's almost antithetical to what I do to be online and doing social media. I know a lot of writers don't feel that way, but I feel kind of that way. I think it's good for my mental health.
I'm sure it is. Yeah.
After Liar's Poker, you were surprised to have inspired a whole generation of traders. Were there any reactions to The Big Short that really surprised you along those lines?
I got a letter. I had this vivid memory of a letter from a moral philosopher at Oxford. It was really well written, saying, "You've done it again." He said, "You got all these people who go to Wall Street with Liar's Poker, and I just read The Big Short, and you should be ashamed of yourself that you've done it again. My students are reading this thing, and they all want to go work on Wall Street again." And so I remember thinking, "Oh God, I've done this." But there's a little bit. So there's a little bit of that, like, "Oh, that happened." But the reactions to The Big Short, I think it surprised me about The Big Short, because it was the Moneyball had its own life, but it was mainly in sports. I mean, the business people read it too, and they found lessons in it and all the rest. It didn't really collide with American politics. I was shocked by how seriously The Big Short got taken. I mean, I meant it seriously, but it was a great story, and that was all true. And but I was shocked that I went to the United States Senate, and senators found I was there for other reasons. Senators found out I was there. This was like 4 months after the book came out, and all of a sudden I'm in a room with 10 senators who want to hear. They're like all reading the book, and they're talking about it. And I thought, oh my God, we're in trouble if I'm the source of information for these people. We're fucked. So that was the thing. It was like, oh my God, I'm now the grown-up. I don't think of myself as the grown-up. So it took me a while to get used to that. That happened with The Big Short. It was like people were hungering for like an explanation. And that they could digest. Basically nobody can understand what a collateralized debt obligation is, so their brain freezes. And this kind of got them into it enough that they felt they understood it. And that was the thing. It was like, oh, serious people are listening to me, and they might do something because of this. And then they asked me, what should I do? And I have no idea. No idea. I had one idea, actually. It was like, figure out how to get rid of the ratings agencies. Like, don't have the ratings agencies have this federal imprimatur, like take away their advantages, because what they did was really pretty corrupt, and they're incentivized to be. They're paid by the people whose stuff they rate. That's crazy. So the broader thing was like fix the incentives. But I could tell them that, but I didn't. I'm not a public policy person, and I got kind of thrust into that role.
An online question. David asks, Liar's Poker and Steve Bannon, what is up with that?
Oh, that's funny. So I just found this out because I interviewed him for the podcast. But I did know from the first time I interviewed I've only interviewed him twice, but the first time where he said that, you don't know this, but I bought the movie rights to Liar's Poker.
Are you serious?
And turns out it was true. He went from, Bannon went from the Navy to Harvard Business School to Goldman Sachs to Hollywood. and his money comes from having a piece of Seinfeld, and he was in a group with they had producing partners, and they had a deal at Warner Brothers, and that little group did buy the rights to Liar's Poker. I didn't know his name, but I knew the group, and what I didn't know, and this is just great, was that he was the reason they bought the book, because he'd come from Wall Street and said, "This is it. We got to do this." That Warner Brothers paid a fancy screenwriter a whole lot of money to write a really bad script, and this happens all the time. And the problem is always the same. They don't know anything about the material. They don't know anything about Wall Street. So all they know from the book is they can add, and so the script comes in and it basically kills the movie, more or less. And Bannon was so upset that he went in a room and he wrote a script of Liar's Poker. So there's a Steve Bannon's Liar's Poker out there. And I want to see it.
I'm sure you do.
I would like to see it.
Oh my goodness.
Low budget, don't want to put a lot of money into it, but take $500,000 and make Steve Bannon's Liar's Poker and just see what that looks like.
And then do Big Short, the musical.
You've met hundreds of very interesting real-life characters in your books. Are there any that stand out that you really liked as a person on a human level that you've maybe developed a long-term friendship with? And then similarly, I know this is recorded, but are there any that you thought were just so villainous? Or maybe just a group of people maybe that really stand out in your mind? Thanks.
None of them are friends when I write the book. They're all subjects, and they're all at risk, and they're all almost to a person pissed off when the book comes out. There's something that has irritated them. I'll tell you a quick story, and this will also answer the second question. Billy Beane with Moneyball. I don't let anybody see anything. Like you're out, you can see it when the reader sees it. I don't want you to think you can meddle at all, and I don't want you on my shoulder. I have a real ability to just forget, like responsibility to the subjects when I'm writing. I think the responsibility is to the reader. And so Billy Beane gets the Moneyball like a day before anybody, the bookstores get it. And he calls me and he's furious. And he's incoherent. He's not actually attacking me on the phone, but he's shouting. And I said, like, why are you upset? And he says, "You have me saying fuck all the time." And I said, "You do say fuck all the time. Like, what am I supposed to do?" He says, "You don't understand. My mother's going to be really upset." And he was deadly serious. Like, my mother's going to read this. And I had this moment with him, but I felt this actual relief because I thought what I'd done to him. The bad thing was I had described all the secrets of as many of their secrets as I could, and that he was no longer going to have a competitive advantage. And so I laughed. And I said, "Billy, your mother, like, I thought you were going to think I betrayed you because I've just like described your business." And there's this long pause on the other end of the line, and he goes, "You don't really think anyone in baseball is going to read your book?" He goes, "These people don't read." He says, "Like, we've been doing this for 5 years. They don't pay any attention. No, your book's not going to have any effect." He says, "The person who's going to read this book is my mother, and she's going to be furious." So a version of that has happened 20 times in my writing life. Some version of that with the book characters. Afterwards, when they see how it's received and how they're received, it calms down. And what happens, I'm almost sure what happens is this. It's a bit like when they read about themselves, even if I've done it perfectly, it's like you hearing your voice on a recording for the first time. You don't recognize yourself. People don't recognize themselves. They don't know what they look like to other people. And so when they read it, they're off. There's an alien thing that goes on. And then what happens is people they love call and say, "Man, that's you." And they realize that they're reading is lovable. What's on the page there's some sympathy there. There's some people can. And they calm down about it, and they come back, and they forget they were ever angry. If Billy was here, he'd say he never had that conversation. And so Billy has become a very close friend. The way the friendship happened, like really developed, where I developed just a bottomless admiration for him. It is hard to believe and hard to remember, But when that book came out, there was a shitstorm. It was like Sam Bankman-Fried all over again. People were so angry. The sports people were angry. I could not turn on ESPN for 2 years without someone saying something nasty about the book. And there was stuff in newspapers constantly. There was a sports writer here named Bill Plaschke who was all over it constantly. And all these sports writers were pals with the scouts. The thing was implicitly kind of damning of the old way of evaluating baseball players. It was nasty. And Billy Beane was, I just thrown a stink bomb into an industry and I was going to go do something else. It didn't matter to me that it was nasty. I don't care. I think the anger is a sign of I like the anger. I think the anger is a sign that things going to live for a while. And Billy, on the other hand, he has to live in this industry. And 99 out of 100 human beings would have given in some small way to the temptation to throw me under the bus. He could have done it in a lot of ways I wouldn't have even minded that much, and I could have understood. Instead, he said, every word in that book is true, and if you want to come fight me. It was so brave. So from that, I thought, like, this is a guy I want to be friends with. From that, I thought, like, this guy, I know this guy's character now. Like, it was not convenient for him to do that. Now, I am friends, the longer answer is there's nobody who I've written about at great length who I'm not still friendly with in some way. They're all in my life. They call me. The weird thing that happens is that they get bothered that I'm not still around. I write the book, and I've spent a year with them, and the book's out. It's like, hey, where are you? And so, well, I got to write another book. You know, I can't come by and interview you. You know, that happens. That feeling that I've kind of jilted them, that's in the air. Like they're not getting enough attention or love or whatever. So.
The question I'm not going to ask is about how you feel about all those people you write about getting fired. I mean, the civil servants who are getting shit on now.
Yeah.
But Andrew Ross Sorkin was here a week ago. And we're talking about something that you talked about, which was we took care of the banks, we kept it from being a crash, but we didn't take care of the anger. Could they have made those bailouts and make a condition on the banks, you have to take this money in the name of all the people whose mortgages have died. Instead of just taking it from the government, you have to credit the individuals and families who lost money with this money we're giving you. Could they have done that?
I have no idea. At that moment, I think they could have done whatever they wanted. The whole system was coming down. So in retrospect, right, something like that would have helped a lot. In retrospect, paying more attention to the anger that was growing in rural America, the industrial towns being gutted. In retrospect, there are a lot of things we should have done. But so, interesting idea. I never heard anybody say that. But certainly, I mean, if you had Obama here, he would give you a much better answer. He would say, we did do things. We bailed out the auto companies, so we saved those jobs. It's not like they did nothing. It's not like they were oblivious to that. But it is true that when the dust settled, the bankers had their jobs, they started paying themselves bonuses again, and it felt like, the feeling is still in the air. The feeling is, and it's a very specific feeling, that we have this thing called capitalism. It's pretty ruthless. If it's just free markets all by themselves, can be pretty ruthless. It's not a happy place to be unlucky. And there are lots of ways you can be unlucky, and it's not your fault. And so bad things happen when you fail in this thing called capitalism, unless you're a capitalist. And for you, you don't have capitalism. You have a kind of form of socialism. You get covered. Your mistakes get covered. So there are these two systems. And who gets the nice system, the sweet system? The people with all the privilege, the people who go to the best schools, the people who have every advantage. It is no wonder that we get this political response. It's not surprising. So anyway, admire the spirit of the idea. I have no idea if it would be practical.
Yes, thank you. I grew up in Argentina, and even though I don't really follow the politics there, I was very surprised when Milei, the new president, came into power. I didn't know anything of him before this. and I was curious to see your opinion. What do you think of his policies, the way he's approaching the economy?
I love it that you think I know something about Argentina. I love it. I'm so flattered. I'm just so flattered by the question. I have no idea. Why ask me? You're from there. You're from there. I don't know. I don't know. Nothing. I have nothing to say.
So I'm going to ask you not to solve the world's problems, but about your process. You got into writing through Liar's Poker because you experienced it. It was a firsthand account. Which of the books has the material been hardest to master? I mean, I'm thinking when I was reading The Undoing Project.
You just put your finger on it. There is an easy answer to this question, and I'll answer it this way. With my books, almost all of them, I hit the idea. I land on the idea. It takes me 6 months to get conviction about the idea, and as I'm gathering material, another 6 months to a year to gather all the material, and 6 months to write it. The writing ends up being the easy part of it. So 2 years, and really fast. Moneyball, the idea to the book being in stores was a year. A year. I met Billy Beane a year before he's got that book and he's shouting at me over. Yeah, so I met him, and it's a couple months before I figure out what it is. And then, of course, I got to gather all the stuff and then go write it. So that's how fast it can go. The Undoing Project was 8 years. And the Undoing Project, and I did other things. I wrote The Big Short. That I had the idea for the Undoing Project 8 years before I started writing it. And the reason it was such a problem was it was the only time I felt I could not fully get my mind around the minds of my subjects. Their minds did things mine could not do. I've felt my whole career that I'm like the B student writing about C students. That most of the people I'm writing about, like I can master what they know. With them, Kahneman, Tversky, I was the B student writing about the A students. And you don't know what the A student knows. And I never got to the bottom of them, really, bottom of their minds. I told myself, I made this is my process. I made 5 trips to Israel, each one of them a week to 2 weeks. At the end of the 5th, I still thought, I don't think I can write this book. That I don't think I'm the one to write this book. There's someone with a mind that does something that theirs does that mine doesn't. And also someone who's got the academic credentials. It's such an academic book. Someone else should do this. What happened over the course of the 8 years is that all the people who could contribute to the story started to die. I mean, like I had all these interviews, all this knowledge that was vanishing from Earth. Like it wasn't like someone could, and I started realizing, oh no, the B student has to write the story because there is not going to be, otherwise it just won't get written. And so I backed myself into a corner after all that time where I remember having a breakfast or a lunch at a diner in New York with my editor, Star Lawrence, who just passed away a few months ago. He's been my editor since Liar's Poker. And I said, Star, like I've been agonizing over this for 8 years. And he said, Michael, just go write it. Shit, nobody's going to know you don't know anything. It's like just, he says, you have this great, you see it as a love story between a platonic love story between these two men, and their ideas are really interesting, and what could go wrong? Go do it. And so I just said, oh, well, screw it. I'll go do it. But it was really hard to go do that book. And I've never had that experience since, and I hope I never have it again. Thank you. Thank you.